Welcome to Stonewatch. This is my spoiler review for Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire. And if you haven't already, please smash the subscribe button, click on that bell so you can be notified for future videos. And be sure to give this video a thumbs up. And yes, after watching Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire in the theaters opening weekend, I gotta say this movie was so damn badass, man. I mean, it was action-packed, monster versus monsters from the start all the way to the end. And it was like nonstop. They wasted no time right at the very beginning during the title sequence. We already have King Kong running and hunting. And this was like a brutal scene. Just before we actually get they do like the title sequence to the movie, we see him like again, this is a spoiler review. We see him like tear one of the monsters. I don't even know what the hell they were. Tears it right over his head and spills its blood and guts all over him and stuff like that to intimidate the whatever the hell that they were. And like I was like, oh my god! And it was kind of funny. Like just like a human, he had to shower it off like after that. And that was so damn brutal. And that was like before we actually got the title sequence for the movie. And it was just kept on going right into it. I mean, every time you turn around, there was like Godzilla versus some other kind of monster, and it was just an epic fight. Now, I have to say, after watching Monarch over on Apple TV Plus, I couldn't help but notice as all these monsters are fighting in these cities, I'm going, man, I wonder just how many people are actually losing their life because of these monsters like battling it out in the middle of their town. You know what I mean? And then like when like Rome was like complaining to Monarch about Godzilla sleeping in the Coliseum and stuff like that, which is kind of funny. You know, she's like, it could have been worse if Godzilla did not show up and take out that monster. Just think of that. And I'm like, okay. Which, it was like that throughout the whole entire thing. Now, I did see a lot of complaints online saying that this was nothing but monster versus monster and little light on story. And I have to admit, I have to agree with that. Even though it was there, I think it really paid off. Like if you were watching all these movies, we're going at 10 years since the whole MonsterVerse started with Godzilla back in 2014. Which that was good, but unlike this movie, there wasn't like a whole bunch of Godzilla in it. That's my only complaint about that movie. But however, it was just setting the tone for this whole entire series that we've gotten over like the last 10 years. Now, this movie had a runtime of 115 minutes, just 5 minutes short of 2 hours. And I have to say that the pacing in this movie was pretty damn good. I mean, it wasn't like net-breaking speed or nothing, but it went at a pretty good clip. You know what I'm saying? Even during like the human story, which wasn't really all that great, but even then, it was still chugging along at a pretty decent pace. And it never dragged it whatsoever. You know what I'm saying? I was never bored at any moment in this movie. As far as I'm concerned, I thought it was pretty damn good. Now, I kind of wish I would have done a rewatch of Godzilla vs. Kong before I saw this movie, because there was a lot of returning cast members that I didn't really recognize when I saw them on the screen. The one main chick that was in this stuff, she had long hair in the last movie. She had short hair in this one, so I didn't really recognize her at first. I mean, I kind of recognized the little girl who did the sign language talking to Kong and stuff like that, so I'm like, oh, okay, I kind of know who that character is, but that was like the only returning character that I recognized. Now, I mean, there's other ones in this one that after watching the breakdown videos after the movie, I'm going, oh, okay. But I mean, I was more familiar with the characters in Monarch over on Apple Plus, but that show, like in the timeline, is like way further up the road compared to this movie. Like I think this movie is supposed to be like a few years after the events of Godzilla versus Kong, which I think puts it almost like, I don't know, like 10 years or so after the events of Monarch, I think. I'm not really positive on that. I think someone said this is supposed to be 2029, where Monarch, I think, ended in 2019. I think that's where it ended. But anyway, which, I don't know. I mean, I kind of was coming out of Monarch, and I was kind of hoping to get a lot more of that in this movie, but knowing that what I was hearing, that wasn't the case. It was just nothing but Godzilla beating the crap out of another monster in one scene after another. Even King Kong had some good fights in this stuff, especially with the Scar King and stuff like that, and Shimu, which is a really weird name for a big monster, but whatever. It kind of makes me think of a killer whale from SeaWorld, you know what I'm saying? But it's just me. However, I thought he was a cool monster, though, even though I never heard anything about him until this movie, so I don't know how much in the monster lore she actually is based on, but I don't know. I thought she was a pretty cool character, and obviously we're going to see a lot more of her, right? Adam Wingard was the director for this film. He also directed Godzilla vs. Kong, which, after looking at his filmography, it's the only other movie on there that I know, so I like 2 of his movies. Hopefully this movie does well enough that where he can actually do a 3rd film and he gets a trilogy out of this, but we'll have to wait and see how that goes. But other than that, I thought he did a pretty damn good job with this movie. Hopefully he gets to do more. Starring in this movie, Rebecca Hall, Tyree Henry, Dan Stevens, Kaylee Hottle, Alex Ferns, and Fala Chen. just to name a few. Coming out of opening weekend, Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire, is sitting with a Rotten Tomato score of 55%, with 166 top critics reporting in. So a little over half of these top critics actually like this movie. Now, I did look through some of their reviews on this thing, and they pretty much, both sides of the coin are pretty much citing the same thing of why they liked it and why they didn't like this movie. Some people liked the fact that this movie was nothing but monster versus monster, and some people didn't like this movie because it was nothing but monster versus monster. I guess it is, but at this point, you just can't please everybody. However, I'm one of those people that actually did like it, even though I kind of would like a little bit more of a better human story than what we got. But other than that, this movie was a lot of damn fun. And the general consensus from the critics for this movie is this: come to Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire for the sheer monster smashing spectacle. And stay for that too, because the movie doesn't have much else to offer. Now, I gotta be honest with you, after watching Monarch on Apple Plus TV, I gotta agree with that, because on that show they kind of focus more on the human side of the story of this thing than they did in this movie. Now, if you watched all those other movies that we've gotten over the last 10 years, plus that show, going into this movie, I think you would see some of that stuff that's in there that most people wouldn't pick on. I mean, there was a couple things on here as far as that goes that they did, was like the whole pulling his tooth out and stuff like that. That was kind of funny. And then when like Scar King was making fun of him for getting that, and then he turned it back around and knocked his tooth out too. And he's like, here, there you go, check that, take that, you know. So I thought that was kind of funny. But other than that, this thing was definitely a little light on the human side of the story. You know what I'm saying? Now, over on the audience side, Godzilla X Kong and the New Empire is sitting with a score of 93%, with 1,000+ fans telling you what they think. Now, the fans are loving this movie way more so than the critics, and it is showing at the box office. Godzilla X Kong and the New Empire stomp on the Ghostbusters Frozen Empire to take number one at the box office for the weekend, with an estimated domestic haul of $80 million, which is way higher than this thing was being projected to get at going into this weekend. Now, including its international haul of an estimated of $114 million, which brings its worldwide box office estimated to be $194 million. Now, its budget is being reported at only being $135 million. Now, depending on what his marketing budget was, this thing is almost more than halfway to being profitable. Hopefully this thing will make some decent money and they'll be able to continue on with the MonsterVerse, because I've been loving all these movies. But we'll have to wait and see how this thing performs in week 2 before we really know if it has any legs to keep on going. You know what I'm saying? Now, I don't see anything it's got really to worry about next week as far as taking away any of its box office, except for The Monkey Man, which is a action thriller. It might take away some of its box office, but we'll have to wait and see. But I think that's the only thing it's going to have in the way of competition next week, or at least in the next couple weeks, to be quite honest with you. You know what I'm saying? Now, if I had to rank the MonsterVerse movies right now, I probably would have to go Kong Skull Island is my number 1. Godzilla King of the Monsters comes in at number 2. Then it's probably pretty much tied with Godzilla X Kong and Godzilla vs. Kong coming in at number 3. And coming in at the bottom, I hate to say it, it's the 2014 Godzilla movie. I liked it, but there wasn't enough Godzilla in it. I know it probably was to save money, but I'm sorry, there just wasn't enough Godzilla in that movie. I still like it nonetheless, but that's my rankings for these movies. Now, over on the TV side for the MonsterVerse, we had Monarch, The Legacy of Monsters, which was on Apple TV Plus. That show was so damn awesome. So damn awesome. I'm kind of hoping we get another season of that thing, because that was kind of like filling in the gaps up between the movies. So I kind of hope we get another season of that, but that thing was so damn awesome. I highly recommend watching it. If you had not watched that, highly recommend. Now, the animated series that was over on Netflix, I did not know that actually tied into the MonsterVerse. I mean, I kind of thought it did, but now I'm going to have to go back and kind of watch that again so I can actually see where that actually really ties in. That was an awesome show. Highly recommend watching it if you haven't watched that one yet. So, I don't know, man. Overall, I did like this movie quite a bit. I had a lot of fun watching this movie. A little light in the story as far as the humans goes, but it is what it is. I wonder how long Kong's going to hold on to that mechanical thing that they put on his hand. I mean, I thought it was just to help him out because he was injured after fighting Shimu for the first time, but kind of seems like that's going to stick around for a little bit. So I kind of wonder how long he's going to hold on to that. Also, because, you know, Shimu did make it out of this movie and they seem like they're friends now. So kind of wonder how that's all going to all play out. And we have like the little Kong dude. I wonder if he's going to get a name and wonder what that's going to be. And is he going to be in the next movie? Is the next movie going to be focused on him? You know, and then it was kind of weird because like when he first showed up, it didn't seem like he was all that big until he actually got into an Earth, you know. Then he realized that, man, he is actually pretty damn big, you know. He's still like 20 stories tall or something. So, I mean, this movie was pretty good. There was some spots in the story I'm going, what? But other than that, but for the most part, I did like this this movie quite a bit. I kind of hope it makes a lot of money so we can see some more. You know what I'm saying? So did you get a chance to go out and check out Godzilla X Kong, the New Empire? Let me know in the comments down below what you think. You think this movie was any good? Let me know in the comments down below. And where does this movie rank with you with all the other MonsterVerse movies? Let me know in the comments down below. I mean, this was a lot of fun, and I hope we get to see more, right? So let me know what you think in the comments down below.